Hi friends, it's Jean from the Inky Studio. I'm back here with part 3 of this accordion flip no-sew journal. And I want to welcome all my new subscribers. I hope you find inspiration here, and I am just happy to have you come along. In here, we are working with, of course, my porch. Let me back up. We're working with the Pink Monarch papers, in case you're curious about that. And we've done 5 pages so far, and I will link down below the playlist in case you missed it and you want to catch up with all of this. And there's also a free digital download, and I will put that down below as well in case you wanted to check that out. So today what we're going to be working on is this folio with the flaps and everything and the 2 little buttons to hold it together. And this will be, this is the 6th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. This is the 5th page that we're working with. And there will probably be one more page, and then there will be the end piece, and then we'll wrap it up in the next video. So for this one, we're going to be working on this. So let's get started.
For the next page, we'll start with 2 5x7 pieces again. But before we do, I want to show you what I did with the tag that we did last video and how I decorated it. I added a cute little surprise there with a little sweet face. But when I put the decoration on there, I wanted to make sure I put it so it would be hidden. And a tip for doing that is I used a post-it note, and I just stuck one frame right at the edge where I didn't, to show me where I didn't want to go past, and I did that with the other frame, and so therefore I would know exactly where to place my ephemera. So that's just a tip for you if you want to decorate that tag without it showing. So I'm going to be using an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I'll show you later if you want to use a 5 by 7 sheet. And I'm going to cut it the long way, just under the width of my page, just like, instead of 5 inches, like 4 7/8 inch. And then I'm going to add 2 inches to the height of it, which would make it 9 inches, so that 2 more than 7. And save that little end piece. We're going to be using that. We're going to take that piece again and we're going to cut it in half. And I'm just going to make sure that it is just a little bit skinnier than my piece, and I'm arranging them to see how I want the flaps to be, which on top, which on the bottom. And I'm going to round the corners of where the 2 flaps are going to be meeting. And then we're going to, I apologize for that cord hanging out there on this side. We're going to score about 3/8 of an inch on the, the opposite side of where they meet. So the top of the top piece and the bottom of the bottom piece. So they kind of have an opposite scoring. I'm going to align them up just to make sure that, it's all looking good, looking the way I want. And you should have about a good 1/2 inch of overlap, and so that's important. You do want that overlap. Now if you use the 5 by 7s, you can't use just one sheet, because if you used just one sheet, you would end up with a gap. So you'll have to use a sheet for the top, a sheet for the bottom, and then of course one sheet for the 2 sides. So in the end it would be 3. Now the other piece that was left over, I am cutting that just a little under the height of my page, so that would be 6 7/8. And that piece we will cut in half the long way, and we'll be scoring one side on each piece. The 3/8 of an inch like we did before. Now I did want to say that the paper you have laying down, uh, the, the, the paper that's on the page, you don't want it to be your favorite printout because that will be covered up. Now I'm going to miter the edges, and so I have an old gift card or whatever that I've cut a slit on that I use to put on my tags if I want to make a tag out of a rectangle. And I'm just using that, but you could cut a piece off, miter a piece off by sight if you want to. It just helps it to fold a little better and look a little bit more complete. And so now we have our two sides. And if you're distressing, of course, this is the time to distress all your pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and glue on the two sides. Make sure it's in the middle of my page. I kind of like gluing the base, the page first, and then putting the flap down, because if I glued the flap and put that over, sometimes it would seep into the other side, and I don't know, I felt it was neater to do it that way, but you do it your favorite way. So now I'm going to take the upper flap and I'm going to find the middle, about 3/4, well, maybe even 3/4 of an inch from the edge. I'm going to put a little mark there because I'm going to be putting on my buttons to use for a tie string to close this flap. And then I'm going to come down here about 3/4 of an inch down from where that flap is and put another little dot there where I'll be putting the second button. And I'll just punch a hole. So to make the buttons, I have punched out with my hole punch 3/4 inch. I punched out 4 pieces of cardstock, and you've noticed I put a little dot in the middle to show me where I'm going to eventually put a hole. So when I make my sandwich, I make sure that that little dot is showing. I guess it didn't matter, you can do it afterwards. And then I'm going to put my decorative paper over those 2 pieces of cardstock. Now you can use an awl, that I have there on the left. If you don't have a hole punch, you can always use that. I have a little tiny hole punch. But when you use the awl, be careful, don't poke your fingers. And so now we're ready to put in, okay, you can't get to this hole usually with your hole punch. Now I have a long reach, but using the awl will be handy for you to do. I'm just going to go ahead and put on that button on the top. You don't want to fold it too tightly. You want to have it a little bit loose, just a little bit. I'm going to make sure that my dots line up again, just to check it out. Yep, dots line up well. And I'm going to use the awl for this, just to show you that, it can be done. And I'm getting this button ready. Now I'm going to get some pearl cotton for a tie. I was going to use that cording, but actually was a little too thick for the hole that I made with the awl, and just poking it through there. And once you get your string through, you're going to want to tape that down towards the bottom, or excuse me, towards the top of that flap. So I'm going to put a little extra glue down just to make sure it holds well, and putting a little piece of tape. That way your string is secured. And then putting in your little button. A handy way to put those legs down is to kind of get something thin like this and kind of fold them over that so that your button won't be super tight. It'll have a little room for the string to wrap around it. And now we're going to glue these two flaps on, making sure they're in the middle. I think this is the one where that leaked over into the inside, because when I put the glue on the flap, I got too close to the fold, so you may want to watch that. And now we have finished our little folio pocket. And I'm going to put a knot at the end of the tie just so it doesn't fray. Okay. Now we're going to work on the back. And for the back, I'm going to make a pocket, but I'm going to make a slit to put the pocket in. So the first thing I want to do is determine how tall of a tag I'm going to have. I put this in at, I think, at 4.5 inches up from the bottom, and then it's about 4 inches wide. I went in 1/2 inch from the sides. Now in the end, I just felt like if I do this again, I would definitely go like 3.5 inches in. Make sure that your two sides are even, like I didn't there. And you're going to take your craft knife and cut along that line. Of course, a metal ruler is the safest kind of ruler to use. So I'm going to cut it go down it a couple times, but I'm going to come down about 1/8 of an inch from that first cut and make a second cut. And this will let the slit be a little easier to get in and out of. And your tag's going to slip right inside like that. Now we're going to glue the edge all the way around, and then we're going to glue just the top, but not the bottom. And gluing the top down will also help that tag to go in and out easily and give a little bit of stability to the pocket. You'll want to make sure that when you make a tag, it's tall enough to peek up out of the slit, or you might lose it. And so that's easy peasy. Now we're going to attach this, and it is going to have the fabric is going to have to go on the back of the folio, because otherwise, of course, you would have trouble with your flaps opening properly. So we're just going to glue our generous 1/4 of an inch on one edge, and just like we did the other, we'll put down about 1/3 of our cloth and work on the other side. So you can see I'm really close to that slit. So I think the next time I would make like 3 3/4 width there instead of the 4 inches. Although I snuck in, and then I'm going to go back in and just take up the slack there. So there is your flip out. Now you're probably wondering, why do I have 4 sides or flaps instead of just 2? And I'll show you. Oh, first of all, yes, there's a hot mess down here on this flap with the tape and the brad. So that little piece that was left over from cutting the flaps, I am going to glue that in there, and I rounded the corners up, and I'm just going to slip that right over that there. So now I'll show you why we have 4 rather than just 2. So this is for loose ephemera, is what I'm going to put in here. Now you may not be putting loose ephemera, but as you can see, it won't fall out, which will be pretty important. Once this is all folded up, you won't have it slipping out.
Well, that is the end of this little piece. We have the, of course, we have a back side to this journal, don't forget, and we will address that later. But we have the little pocket that sits back there on that side, and we have this little cute little folio to keep all those little loose pieces of ephemera or whatever it is that you want inside there. So thank you so much for viewing. I've enjoyed having you come with me, and we will see you in the next video. Bye!